Thank you very much. I've got a very difficult task. I'm following two really good talks that Alan and John gave. Plus, I'm talking right at when everybody's thinking about how can I get to lunch very quickly. A third challenge that I have is I've been asked to talk about out-licensing, and I'm really more focused on in-licensing in my job at Merck. I'm actually giving this talk on behalf of my colleague Meeta Chatterjee, who leads our out-licensing group. And I think a fourth challenge with this is how do we out-license in vaccines? I mean, I think this is, as you'll see as I get into my talk, this is something that I think is very new to Merck as a big pharma, and I'm not sure how many other of the big pharma are really involved with out-licensing of technology. So with those caveats, let me just get into my presentation. Here's the mandatory forward-looking statement. I won't read that for you. But I want to just bring some key points about Merck to put this topic into context. As you all probably know by now, we merged with Schering-Plough in 2009, and there were a number of reasons for doing this, but we feel that this made us a stronger and more dynamic company that really crosses across all sections of healthcare. We're still headquartered in New Jersey, and there are some other facts about the company that are here, but I think one of the key things I want to emphasize is that we really are a global company, and I'll get into this more when I talk about vaccines, where there may be some limitations on that when I say we're a global company in vaccines. We're also a very large company. And you see this bottom bullet point that I have here in terms of the number of licensing and partnership deals that we executed in 2010. We executed 46 deals, so that's a lot of deals, but I can say that our department as a whole looked at many thousands of deals, literally many thousands. So of the numbers that we evaluated, the numbers that we actually did is quite small. And so I think our job is to really find those gold nuggets amongst all the other materials that come in. This is just a broad overview showing that we really are very involved across a number of therapeutic areas. We have, like many companies have done, prioritized the areas that we're really focused on. And I want to emphasize that, as we went through this prioritization for all the programs after the merger of the companies, we selected certain key areas that we would focus on, and vaccines remains one of those key priority areas for Merck. So we are going to be very engaged in vaccines. We view this as a core part of our business and is still an area of emphasis for us. This just shows our current portfolio, our pipeline, and the boxes that are highlighted in orange, and I'll get into this in a little bit more detail about specific vaccine products, are ones that involve either a licensed product or there were perhaps IP that we licensed, but you can see that a large part of our portfolio involves partnerships and things that we've licensed in from others. So we view partnerships as a critical part of our core business. I think one of the key things that we've seen in the industry as a whole over the last few years, and I think this is an accelerating trend, is that up until a few years ago, at least at Merck, we viewed most of the work that we did, most of the products that we were involved with, came out of our own research laboratories, and we took those through from discovery phase all the way through research and development. Now I think we're all focusing more on an open innovation model where different products or different technologies come in at different stages of development. And also what we're also wanting to see is, will we be sending some of those technologies, some of those products outside? So that's what one of the things that I was asked to talk about on this, and that is what about out-licensing of assets? And so we went through a large process of prioritizing what was in our pipeline. And again, with the merger, we had really a wealth of things, and we had to really think about, we can't develop all of these things. We don't have the resources to do all. So we had to prioritize what we would work on. And I want to emphasize that a lot of times these decisions were not based on the quality of the assets, but actually it's just a matter of how many resources could we bring to bear, what are our key strengths, where are the areas that we can focus on. And there may be other areas where there are assets that we have that we think that we don't have the resources to work on, but can we get valuation from those by out-licensing those to other people? And so a key part of, I think, our out-licensing group is to really ensure that we're making the best use of those assets that we have fully. So I'm going to focus this part of the talk really on small molecules and biologics. And the reason is that, quite truthfully, we haven't really done this in vaccines yet. So, you know, the title of the talk that I was asked to speak on was Out-Licensing, Can It Work for Vaccines? And I would say, at least from our perspective, so far we haven't done this. But I think we want to explore how we could do this. And we have done this for other areas like small molecules and biologics. And so some of the reasons that we would out-license these assets are that perhaps the target or the specific mechanism of a molecule might be outside of our core strategy. Again, we had to really prioritize on what we were going to work on, what we were going to focus on. It's not saying that these are not interesting mechanisms or even commercially valuable, but we had to pick and choose what we were going to work on. And sometimes there are things there that fall outside of those core strategies. And again, I've already mentioned that we don't have the resources to develop everything, and so we don't want good assets to be just sitting on the shelf somewhere when somebody else might find those to be of value. And so I think one of the key components of our out-licensing group is to really monetize those assets that we have no longer prioritized to resource internally. And so again, I think I've already kind of gone through this, but I think what we're trying to look at as we look at outsourcing or out-licensing our products is that we're trying to build those relationships with other partners to think about who might be the appropriate partner to out-license these assets to. And let me explore that a little bit more and think about how could we do this? You know, what are the frameworks where we might be able to do this? And so there are several potential models that we might look at. There could be just a straight out-license of a compound. There may be something that we're no longer going to develop ourselves, and we would just out-license this to somebody else to develop. There may be times, too, where we may say we don't have the resources to develop this, but somebody else may be very interested in this target, and so we might do a development in partnership with them, perhaps with an option to relicense this based on success at a certain point. So in a way, this is almost an outsourcing kind of model where we're working with a partner, we provide a certain asset, let them develop that, and maybe part of that deal is that we can get an option to it at a later time. Also, there may be times where we out-license whole programs. You know, again, we've picked certain priority areas that we're going to work on, and that means there are certain areas that we're no longer going to work on. And so we may bundle some of these assets into a larger part. And then also, I think a very important thing are some regional deals. So there may be things that are of very particular interest to certain regions, and we might look at regional deals on this. And then we get a lot of inquiries about different molecules that might be repurposed. So we may have developed something for a particular indication, and somebody else may be very interested in that compound for another indication, and so we can look at that as well. So when we're looking at somebody that we might partner with for this, you know, we want to make sure that, you know, these are, in some ways, these are our children, and we're adopting them out to somebody else. And so we want to make sure that there are good parents out there that are looking at these. So we want to make sure that whoever we are licensing these things to have adequate funding, they've got a track record, they've got the right expertise, both from a scientific and a commercial standpoint, to really do this. And also, you know, are they going to actually be able to get it out to patients that really need these things? So that's some of the background of what we do, and like I said, we've really focused this on small molecules and biologics. And so what are some of the challenges that we face in the vaccine arena? So again, we haven't really done this in vaccines yet, and we're still trying to decide, is this something we can really do in the vaccine area? So I would just say that, you know, we've been very involved in vaccines for a long time. We like to say that we've been in the vaccine business for over 100 years. I don't know that that's completely true in the traditional sense of a vaccine, though we did, the original Merck was very involved with the first diphtheria antitoxin or serum over 100 years ago. And I think our real history in vaccines comes with Dr. Maurice Hilleman, who was the leader of Merck basic research beginning in the late 1950s. And Dr. Hilleman led to a number of vaccines that are now very commonly known across the world. And if you look at, this is just a timeline for some of these things, and you can see that 2006 was a very big year for us. We had 3 novel vaccines as well as another combination vaccine that came into the market in 2006. And I want to kind of expand on this a little bit. So if you look at, this is based on the US vaccination schedule. So if you look at both pediatric and adult vaccines, Merck supplies the majority of these vaccines in the US market. However, I think as we get into this, you know, we've been a very US-focused vaccine developer for many years, and we're realizing, as everybody is, that you have to look well beyond that. And I think Alan emphasized this point very, very well in his talk. If you look at the birth cohort for the US and even considering Europe, it's very small compared to the rest of the world. So as we're looking at new vaccines, I think we're really looking at partnering, and I think partnerships are going to be a key to this. And I've highlighted in this that if you look at, and this is not just about vaccines, but about all of Merck's revenues in 2010, almost 2/3 of those revenues came from products that we developed either by licensing in that technology or by partnering in some way to develop those. And I've got red circles around some vaccines, and I'd like to discuss some of those a little bit more detail. So of the 3 vaccines, the novel vaccines we introduced in 2006, each of those really were very dependent on partnerships. So GARDASIL, as you probably know, is our human papillomavirus vaccine. There are multiple licensing deals that were involved with the development of GARDASIL. The key one was from CSL in Australia, but there are also kind of multiple IP licenses that go into the development of GARDASIL. Likewise, ROTATEQ, our vaccine for the prevention of rotavirus infection, this is a technology that we licensed, this core technology, from an academic center, from the Children's Hospital in Philadelphia. So we've worked with both biotech companies and also with academic centers. So 2 of these vaccines came from some deals. And then Zostavax is a new indication using a different dose for the varicella vaccine, which we licensed a long time ago from Osaka University and Beacon in Japan. So again, of the vaccines that we work with and many of the ones that we have in development now, we're very much dependent on licensing. And so I think our real strategy is that we want to, I think, broaden our horizons. We've been very focused on the US market and through our joint venture with Sanofi in Europe, but we realize that we need to become really a global vaccine developer. And so we have this very broad portfolio, but we really want to find good partners in other regions of the world so that we can really globalize our process, and also, as was mentioned in the previous talks, you know, find local manufacturing partners. And we really view this as a key to our success for this. We really think that collaborations with different governments and agencies around the world is really going to be the key to our success. So I think what I'm trying to say is that licensing still plays a really major role in vaccine development for us, as it does for everyone else. And again, I think Alan emphasized this very well in his talk earlier, that each component of vaccine development really does involve licensing and partnering, whether that's, looking at discovery technology platforms, whether that's actually identifying antigens or licensing in specific antigens. Novel adjuvants is an area that's of a lot of interest to everyone, and also alternate forms of delivery. Getting away from traditional needle and syringe delivery is something. And I think another key factor is manufacturing. And I think that vaccines in particular, this is a really critical point that you can't emphasize enough, is that as opposed to some small molecules, we like to say it's an old saw that the process is the product, and so you can make a product in one place, but you can't just chemically characterize that, bridge that to a new facility. You really have to be very, very carefully involved with process development, and so I think that when you're looking at vaccines, the early discovery phase, finding antigens, that's a critical part. But I think the bioprocess and manufacturing part of that is really something that is, I won't say it's totally unique to vaccines, but it's critical to the success of vaccines. And so finding the right partners for those manufacturing is really, really critical for us. And so I think there are a lot of complexities when you talk about vaccine development. I hope I've emphasized that. It's not just, okay, we're a vaccine developer, we found this antigen, we made a vaccine, and now we're going to sell it. There are many components that go into this. And I think, we as a large vaccine developer, we have our strengths. We have a lot of things, both in terms of basic discovery, but also particularly in bioprocess manufacturing, assay development, things like clinical and regulatory expertise, and the commercialization expertise. How do you actually get these products to the people that need them? We have those strengths. But I think there are all these complexities in vaccines, and I think that we're seeing more and more of this, particularly as we all try to move into new areas, new regions of the world, that it's really going to require partnerships and very complex partnerships at times because of all the different things that are associated with this. And so these are just some examples of some of the complexities that we face, I think, as we're in vaccine development, of how are we going to really partner with people. So I want to just give a couple of things, just talking about some areas where the focus in the emerging markets is really, really critical. And these are different areas that we are looking at Merck as a company, of how we may be able to expand further into emerging markets. You can see that there are a number of areas such as cardiovascular disease, diabetes, et cetera, where there's a huge unmet medical need there, where we think that we can play a big role. But I think I'm preaching to the choir here that everybody realizes that there are a lot of unmet need for vaccines in many parts of the world where we've got products that potentially can prevent disease, save lives, and right now we're not getting them to those people. And then also there are new targets, new antigens that we don't have vaccines for, that really are going to require those kind of partnerships. And so I think as Merck looks to become more of a global vaccine player, we're really looking hard at how we can find good partners in these different areas so that we can meet these huge unmet medical needs. So what are some ways that we have done this? So again, I think I've mentioned the business case for this is that we view that there are significant opportunities for growth in these areas. And if you look at it, really 80% of the disease burden is really in these new markets. So if we're looking at even getting our existing vaccines, this is where the real need is. So this is where we need to go. We are looking to expand our current portfolio through these types of alliances and partnerships. And also, again, I think, just to go back to it, the supply chain, local manufacture, these are critical elements for vaccines. I think one piece that we like with I think, notable pride to look back to, but this is almost 20 years ago now, or over 20 years ago, was a partnership that we did with China. So, we had developed our hepatitis B vaccine. The initial vaccine we developed was actually a plasma-derived vaccine, which I actually received in medical school. I don't know, that dates me back to getting that old plasma-derived vaccine. But we very quickly moved to our recombinant-based platform. But we recognize, and as many people did, that there are huge burdens of disease, particularly in Asia with hepatitis B. And in China, they had really one of the highest rates of hepatitis B in the world. About 60% of the population in China was hepatitis B seropositive. Huge numbers of people, and you look at, even if the severe complications are not in the majority of people, when you just look at the sheer numbers, it's a huge number. And so back in the late 80s, we did a deal with the Chinese Ministry of Public Health, and essentially we did a tech transfer of our recombinant vaccine to China. We did this with 2 Chinese vaccine manufacturers. The agreement was signed in the late 80s, and these facilities came online in the early 90s. And we really view this as a great win-win situation where even though there was not a commercial value for us for this was just a tech transfer to the Chinese manufacturers. What we did see was a really huge benefit in public health in this. And so I think this is one of the real success stories of showing where, with the right partners, you can make a huge impact in public health. And we would like to replicate, this type of success story with other things in our portfolio and even new targets that are coming online. For those of you that were here yesterday and heard Tony Ford Hutchinson, who's head of vaccine research at Merck, talk, he mentioned also this, what we think a very unique partnership that we've developed with the Wellcome Trust, where both Merck and the Wellcome Trust have put in funds to develop the Hilleman Labs. This is really the first time that a research charity and a large pharma have partnered to form a separate entity. This is an R&D organization which will be essentially run like a business, though it is a non-for-profit organization. And it will serve to kind of bridge that early gap. It's not really a discovery engine place. It's not a late-stage development commercialization. It's really to focus on how do you take those early vaccines and bring them to the point where they become viable candidates to bridge that so-called valley of death that we so often see with products with a large focus on bioprocess. And so this is another example of a unique partnership that we feel in the emerging market shows perhaps a model for how some things could be done. So again, just to kind of sum up here, we haven't done out-licensing deals yet in vaccines. We do a lot of in-licensing, and we do a lot of partnerships. We have done tech transfers, both with China with our hepatitis B, and we're looking for other partners where we can do local manufacture and tech transfer to different regions of the world to really become a global vaccine manufacturer. Could we think about out-licensing in the more traditional sense? And I think it's something we're open to exploring. And again, there's a number of different ways that we could do this, and these are on this slide. I'm just showing some of the potential options that we could consider for doing this. And so, we view this as a potentially very important part of our business where we have a number of assets. We've been asked to really, to quote our new CEO, Ken Frazier, we've been asked to ruthlessly prioritize what we focus on. We have our key areas of competence, our areas of strategic focus, but we have a lot of assets that may not fit with those parts of those key strategies. And so how can we really find good partners to bring those products, to the people that need them? And so, we're looking for different ways that we could, provide what we do best and find the right partners to do other things that maybe we don't either have the expertise or the resources to devote ourselves. So, this just shows that some of the things that we're good at are some of the discovery and clinical development and the commercialization, but we recognize that there's a lot of innovation going on out there. There are a lot of smart people out there in the world, and we're trying to find the right partners that may be able to help us, work together to bring all of these things into the people that need them. So I'll stop with that.